to my dear brother for such a kind and gracious introduction. It is a blessing to be back with y'all. As some of you have noted, my look is different than my typical look, and I feel the need to explain it. My partner asked me to explain it before I got on camera. So the story is I am nearing the end of a 3-year book project, and I have committed to not shaving or cutting my hair, so it is very nappy right now until this book is finished. And so she asked me to apologize on behalf of the Hill family for my physical appearance to y'all. She said you shouldn't be looking like that during Black History Month, but that's another conversation that we'll just go on from. But I am grateful to be back with you. I want to start with the story. My 5-year-old daughter, Mia Joy, is one of the bright spots of my life. She is into competitive gymnastics, and she got asked as a 4-year-old to join the competitive team. And at her gym, they've actually produced a couple of Olympians. And so this summer, we're watching Simone Biles. We're doing things like that. And so recently, her gym emailed me and said, we're having a parents' meeting. One parent has to be present. So this sounds serious. I don't know what's happening. Are they closing? Are they relocating? Are they downsizing? I don't know because we live in times of uncertainty. So I arrive at this meeting, and one of the things that they say at the meeting is, we just want you to know what's happening. And when someone says that they want you to know what's happening, it's like there's something happening I need to know about. And as this meeting goes on, what it ends up being is that the gym was being sued and investigated for some ways in which a past athlete was treated. And they were trying to get out ahead of the story because they recognized that when this media story broke, as it would in a couple of weeks after this initial meeting, this could cause a reputational threat that would make their business, their small business, impossible to run. That if they lost consumer confidence, they had nothing left. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to get out in front of the story. Why? Because they wanted to be able to frame the story in a manner that made their business possible. And let's be clear, because of the ways that they framed the narrative, because of the ways in which they recounted the story and took questions from, the 50 to 70 parents that were assembled that evening, many of us chose not to leave the gym. Why? Because we felt like we understood the circumstances in a manner that still preserved our confidence in the gym that we had enrolled our children to learn gymnastics from. And so what they did is they flipped the story in a way that protected, preserved, and even enhanced their business. What we're going to talk about today, and we're going to talk about a couple times throughout this year, is how do we flip the script when we face reputational threats? And I'm just going to be clear. This is not going to be one of those slap meetups when I'm going to be doing all the talking. My plan is I'm hoping to talk for about the next 15 to 20 minutes, and then we're jumping in some scenarios. My dear brother said earlier, I'm a college professor, so we're going to school today. So I'm just letting y'all know that's the direction we're heading. So let me start by sharing my slides with you. Give me 1 second. Okay. Everyone should be able to see a slide saying flip the script, media engagement workshop. Can we all see that? Okay, great. Let's keep it moving then. So we're talking about flipping the script. When we talk about flipping the script, I always think about one of my favorite political dramas of all time, The West Wing. If you enjoyed a show like The West Wing, there was this character named C.J. Craig who could flip any story to make the president appear in the best possible light. What we're not talking about here is deception. There's a lot of lies going on in the public sphere around the globe right now to frame. I'm not talking about how we lie to make ourselves look good, but we understand that every situation has multiple perspectives. And sometimes someone's reading your business, your entrepreneurial activities in one light, and you're saying, well, from another perspective, you might feel differently if you understood it. So we understand that every situation has multiple perspectives. The frame you choose in any situation, it informs, it shapes, it serves as a catalyst for how your business will be perceived by the publics that you so desperately need support from. Third, we understand You can't control questions, but what we can control is how do we respond to the questions. And so what we're trying to do today is we're trying to understand, how do we flip the story? How do we flip the script? How do we respond to the questions in a way that aids, not hurts, our businesses? So what I want to do for the next 10 to 15 minutes is go through 5 principles of responding to negative perceptions about your business. So how do we reframe stories? So let's start with these 5 principles. And then after these principles, we're going to jump into a workshop time. And we're actually going to practice, what does it look like? And I'm going to give you some scenarios, and you're going to get around 5 minutes to craft a response. And you say 5 minutes is not that much time. It's like, well, if you've ever been through a crisis, you know you don't get much time to respond to crises. It was mentioned earlier that I'm a professor at Wheaton College, and at Wheaton College, we have been embroiled in a very public controversy that has involved both Elon Musk and the current Vice President of the United States, and we've not had much time to respond to this controversy. So, the first principle: whenever you're facing a negative story, you have to take ownership of whatever you can take ownership of. So, what you can't do is you can't dodge or deny the situation. You have to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge there's something happening here. When I go back to the anecdote I shared earlier about my daughter's gymnastics studio, what did they do first? We want to tell you about this before you hear it from elsewhere. They acknowledged the situation directly. They didn't dodge it. They didn't deny it. They said, there is a situation. You have to take ownership of it. And here's why it's so important. If you don't take ownership of the situation, of framing the situation, of recounting the situation, of explaining the situation, if you don't take ownership of it, someone else will. There's not always circumstances where remaining silent will protect you. Number 2, you have to be willing to accept appropriate responsibility without overextending. So are there things that this is on us, this is our fault, this is something we can do better on? Yeah, take responsibility where you can, but don't take responsibility for things that are not your responsibility. You want to seem reasonable in how you respond, but you don't want to take the blame for everything. This is where the narrative becomes really important. More than anything else under this first point of taking ownership, you have to show that you're in command of the situation. You have to show that you're in command. This comes from everything from how you speak to what you say, but you have to show that you are not frazzled, that you have this under control. People respond to that. An example of that might look like, yes, we've experienced shipping delays last month. Here's what happened. You say that with a calm, steady tone. You're not razzled by the moment, by the questions. You're even inviting the engagement. So you have to begin by taking ownership. The next step, and I'm only moving rather quickly today because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for our scenarios. You have to provide context. This is where it's going to be vital for you to frame it with the appropriate backdrop, because especially in this social media age, people will say things about your businesses with little context, with little explanation, that will leave you in the worst possible light. You have to provide context to help people understand it better. What's the missing background information? What's the contextual elements that would maybe change people's perceptions that they don't know? How do you help people understand the bigger picture? For instance, I mentioned this anecdote with my daughter's gym. Part of the context that they explained was, here's what's being said about us, but here's the larger context. They told us, hey, we've been under investigation for this issue for 6 years, and we've been asking the governing body to make a judgment. We'll accept the consequences if we've done something wrong. But they've been slow in even making a judgment, and the investigation's been finished for 5 years. Well, that's a different thing. That's a different story. This is not new. They're not resisting any responsibility, and the governing body isn't handling this appropriately. That changed how many of us in this situation perceived the gym. Correct misperceptions without being defensive. This is especially important when there's a case where there is a victim. not just like a shipping delay, but if there's a victim in this situation, you want to correct misperceptions without it seeming like you're victim blaming or victim shaming. You have to tread very carefully here between how do we correct misperceptions without attacking an individual. So you might say in this example that I'm going through with like supply chains, this occurred during a period when our entire industry faced supply challenges. What are you doing in that statement? You're saying this was not just us. Everybody is facing this challenge. Everybody is facing this dynamic. We're not alone in this challenge. So, number one, take ownership. Number two, provide context. Number three, pivot to action. You are not exonerated by telling us it's a difficult set of circumstances, everyone's suffering. That doesn't buy you goodwill. What does buy you goodwill is tell us what you're doing to respond to these adverse circumstances you're facing. Number one, quickly transition from the problem to the solution. You want to acknowledge the problem, but you quickly want to move us to what is being done to rectify. We want to hear the actions you're taking. That instills deeper confidence. You need to make sure that whenever you pivot to a solution, don't frame the solution as something that's a future tense. This is where your tense becomes really important. You have to frame the solution as something that is already taking place. When we became aware of this, we took swift steps to do this, this, and this. And in the future, we're going to do this, this, and this. But what you're doing is you're placing your audience in an already ongoing solution. You're telling us we've not waited around, we took swift steps. And what you want to do is you want your audience to feel like they're taking appropriate actions to right this situation. You want to, this gets back to what I just said about the future. What is your plan moving forward? What are you going to do to continue resolving this problem, issue, or matter? An example of what this might look like is we've already implemented 3 changes to address this crisis or address this situation. And moving forward, we plan to do an audit of who our suppliers are. We plan to buy additional supply to deal with any disruptions to the supply chain. Now we know, okay, there's a plan not only in place to resolve this, but there's also a plan to make sure that this does not happen again. It's like, oh, issue resolved. So make sure that you have a plan to pivot to action. Once you pivot to action, you have to connect your steps to your organizational values. Show how your behavior in response to the situation is consistent with your actions. One of the biggest sources of crisis in the life of any business is when your actions are inconsistent with consumer or whoever you are. If you're business to consumer or B2B, when your actions are inconsistent with your stakeholder expectations. And so what you want to do is connect your response to your core business principles. You'll hear businesses saying, we've always been a business that stood for A, B, and C. Our response to this situation is a display of those values. So you want to make sure that you connect your actions to those core business principles. You want to show how your actions align with your mission. This is if you have a mission statement. This is where you invoke it and show how everything you're doing is consistent with your mission. Reinforce, there's a typo there, I'm sorry, stands for, not stand like a M&M thing, stands for. Reinforce what your business stands for. So for instance, you might say something like, customer satisfaction has always been our priority, which is why and then you're taking the action. So what you're trying to do, you're trying to flip this, and if you flip it successfully, you've flipped what is an attack to a celebration of who you are as a business. This is how you flip perceptions of it, and you instill confidence. You instill confidence. What's beautiful about this from a corporate or from an entrepreneurial standpoint is if you emphasize these values right, you can literally set this up so that what happens is that people become more loyal to you than ever before. What happened at the conclusion of that meeting with my daughter's gym? Every parent there expressed a deep commitment to that gym. because of the ways they handled it. Not only did they demonstrate a commitment, but they also demonstrated a commitment to figuring out how can they support the gym in terms of recruiting new clients, trying to be advocates for them in the community. And so they were able to turn this crisis into a strength. The third step, the fifth step, sorry, humanize your business. It's very easy for us, especially in our social media saturated moment, to reduce people to thumbnails, to reduce them to titles, and fail to see the humanity that lurks behind the business name that we see. And for small businesses, you often are your business. You know your employees not just as names on a pay sheet, but you know them as people that you hired. And so this is where, for the small business context, you have to humanize this. And one of the ways that you humanize it, you remind people there's real people behind your business. You do this by sharing authentic stories and personal impact. So this is where you might talk about, I was sleeping when I first got the text about what was happening, or when so and so, and use their name, called me, I was doing this. You're letting them know I'm a person. We are people. You move beyond corporate language to personal language. And so one of the ways that you'll see businesses do this is that our team worked through the weekend to ensure that you all had the supplies you needed despite this supply chain disruption. Why? Because they care deeply about serving you all, our customers, and the community that we operate in. And so these 5 steps lie at the heart of any effort to flip the story in a favorable possible light. Some practical techniques, and I want to make it clear, this is our first foray into this conversation. This is our first foray. We're going to be having additional conversations about this throughout the year. But some practical techniques that you need to keep in mind. And I'm guessing I'm seeing the questions pop in. I'm not actually seeing what the questions are, but yes, I'm happy to share my slides if anyone was not able to get anything. So I got y'all. Number 1, anticipate potential questions before media contact. So if local media, if you think your consumers are going to reach out to you via social media platforms, anticipate what the potential questions are. You need to have a list of what are the questions that we don't want to be asked. And you need to make sure that you have answers to each one of those questions. In any crisis, there's going to be questions you're comfortable answering, and there's going to be other questions you hope they don't ask. Make sure that you lean into those difficult questions that you don't want asked. Because if you're prepared, where you struggle the most with questions, any kind of press conference, interview, social media talkback session should be a piece of cake if you figured out how to respond to your most vulnerable points. Number 2, prepare 3 key messages you want to convey. So let's say in this kind of situation, you might say, there was a supply chain disruption. Here's the steps that we've taken. Here's how they're consistent with our core values. Okay, you know that no matter what else you might say, that's what has to get across. You have to get those points across if nothing else gets across. This is essential. This is essential. Don't rely solely on statistical data or process language to explain yourself. Give us concrete examples or concrete stories to illustrate each point. Stories can be very powerful, persuasive tools. This is why we enjoy movies. I recently saw this movie called Wicked that my partner told me I needed to see. And when we watched Wicked, the reason about something like a movie or a story so powerful is that stories work on your audiences even after you tell it to them. That's why people comment on movies or music long after the moment of their inception. Concrete examples give us something to sink your words into. They give us context to understand exactly what you mean when you say A, B, or C. Number 4, practice your delivery. Make sure you practice it out loud, not just in your head, if you're going to be speaking to someone. If you're going to be speaking to a newspaper, a local news station, if you're going to be speaking in like a virtual setting like this, make sure you practice your delivery out loud. You have to make sure not just your words, but your actual delivery inspires context. Some of the things you should practice when you practice delivery, Right now, if you're looking at this call, you notice I'm trying to look directly at the camera as much as I can. I'll look away occasionally, but I'm trying to look at the camera. Why? Because I'm presenting to you all via Zoom. I want you to feel as connected with me as you can. And so I'm trying to practice. I'm using gestures, I'm using facial expressions. I probably look like an idiot here in my office right now, but I'm trying to communicate with you all more than I'm trying to look sensible in my office environment. So, that's where those are the 5 steps. Now, depending on time, we can take a few minutes for questions right now. I see them kind of stacking up. We can take a few minutes for questions now before we get to our scenario, if that's fine. Gabriel, is that fine with you?
Sure.
All right. Let's see what's in the chat box. If there's anything. Is there anything? Okay. Just comments. Okay, that's fine. All right, let's jump back in. Let me just get that back up.
Just a quick question, Theon.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you mentioned
please.
to anticipate potential questions, do you have any advice? How can we imagine what media is going to say?
Yeah, so one of the ways that you can imagine is if the story has already broken and you're trying to address the story, I would use social media to figure out what are people saying about you, because that's probably what you'll be asked about. So if people are saying that, um, let's just take the supply chain example. If there's a supply chain disruption, someone might say, "Oh, there's not a supply chain issue. They're just trying to jack up prices." And so I would anticipate I'm going to be asked the question, is this an actual supply chain issue, or is this you trying to profit on the perceptions of scarcity right now? Okay, so that's where you'd go to context. This is in no way a means of raising prices on our customers. We are, as a company, committed to serving our companies with the best prices possible. What's happening right now is something that's happening industry-wide. What did I just use? I use that question as an opportunity to reinforce my values and also as an opportunity to kind of explain, here's the context a little bit more. And so I generally pay close attention to what are people who are slamming me, or what are the people who are challenging me? What are they saying publicly? That's generally where the questions are going to come. All right, let's keep it going. Everybody ready for some response scenarios? Let's do it. Okay, here's a scenario. Your small food manufacturing business has received complaints about a batch of products that customers claim made them ill. A local news outlet has contacted you for comment after several local media posts about the issue went viral. There have been no confirmed cases of serious illness, but the reporter mentions they're writing a story about food safety concerns at your company. Your challenge, and that's Slap community, this is y'all, respond to the media inquiry in a way that addresses concerns while protecting your business reputation. Address, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I want from you in a second, but here's some key considerations you should make. Health and safety are paramount. The facts are still being gathered. Your company has a strong safety record, and you need to maintain customer trust. This is just contextually things you should be thinking about. Health and safety are paramount. Facts are still being gathered. Your company has a strong safety record, and you need to maintain customer trust. We got that? Okay. Here's what I'd like. Take 4 to 5 minutes to work on the scenario. Gabriel, I'll ask you in a second if you can put up a timer. Take 4 to 5 minutes to work on the scenario. I want you to create 3 to 5 specific just bullet points detailing your response strategy. Just take 3 to 5 minutes detailing your response strategy. 2 to 3 volunteers, because I love me some volunteers, will share their bullet points with us. And let's be clear, I'm a college professor, but there's no grade associated with this. We're just practicing learning to respond on our feet. I'm going to go back real quickly to the scenario. Your food manufacturing business has received complaints about a batch of products that customers claim made them ill. A local news outlet has contacted you for comment after several social media posts about the issue went viral. There have been no confirmed cases of serious illness, but the reporter mentions they're writing a story about food safety concerns at your company, and you're responding to this media inquiry. You see the key considerations, and what I'll do is once we start, I'm gonna stop sharing the slides. I'll put these items in the chat box so everyone can see them. Is that clear? So I asked you to come up with a response to this. It was meant to be fast. It was meant to be high pressure because that's what these situations will be like frequently. And so if we can just jump right in, I would ask who would be willing to, if we can have maybe 2 to 3 people willing to share, he'll be my bulleted response. And what I'll do is we'll kind of hear from a couple of people what they would do, and then at the end I'll share here's how I would respond to this situation. Here would be some general principles. So let's start there. If I can have 2 to 3 volunteers.
I'll start since nobody wants to.
Hey Linda. Hey
Hi.
Linda, how are you? It's good to
All
see
right.
you.
I know. I'm not very good at this, but I'm giving it a try.
No. We don't have to be good. We're trying to grow. That's what these meetings are
Right.
about.
Okay, so this is what I wrote. Like, good evening, everyone. Because I'm spoken to a crowd, right?
Of course.
Okay. I'm Linda Green from That's Good Waffles. And and I'm here today to dispel a misnomer actually about some safety issues that is going around about good. I want to let you know that I'm okay. I'm not reading what I wrote actually. Okay, I want to let you know that there are standards. We have high standards about safety because our customers is first in mind. However, we are still trying to gather facts about actually what happened, and we'll keep you informed about that. And definitely put some stopgap measures in place if it occurred. But right now, we don't know exactly what happened. Because of our motto says, that's good waffles, is about making things good and our customers happy. When it comes to safety, you're number one.
Okay. I love that. Thank you. So what I'm gonna do, thank you, Linda. I'm gonna let y'all know my secret mission here is to figure out who my PR people are gonna be next time I have a controversy. So that's all we're trying to do right now. I'm trying to get some free PR here. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take 2 more, and then I'm gonna give feedback. So you're gonna see me jotting down notes, and I'm gonna come back to Linda, give a couple thoughts on that. And so we'll come back, and so if I can have another person volunteer.
I don't mind going. Oh,
Abigail, love to hear that. Thank you.
okay. So I wrote down, we take these claims very seriously and are willingly working with officials for a thorough investigation. The health and safety of our consumers are of utmost concern to us. We pride ourselves in using the very best products and manufacturing guidelines for the 20 years we have been in service with 0 issues. And we will continue to provide the very best for our customers as we continue to serve you in whatever product.
Love it. Great. Yes. I love the point about complying with officials. All right. One more.
Theon, I'll try.
All right, Sonia, I'm here for it. Yes. Let's do it.
Right? It's not as scripted as the rest, because I am like conceptual,
Hey,
right?
we are just coming here. There's
I
nobody
am
needs to hedge
actually
themselves.
there, and you're coming to me, right? So it's not scripted. First of all, I want to say, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to respond to some of what that you've seen and that you've heard. We too have heard similar claims, and as you know, we at Them Good Waffles, whatever the name of the company is, really take a pride in our name and in safety and so on, as you know, that we did have maybe a potential issue a couple of years ago, and you saw we addressed that immediately. This will be no different. we are getting some information concerning those specific products are coming into us, but we're going to take the time just to do a little bit more gathering of some of the facts that may have surrounded what could have caused some issues with these particular products. But I assure you, as is customary for us, we will get to the bottom of this, and we will address directly those concerns, those clients who were impacted directly, whether it was otherwise, directly or otherwise. We will, and will, of course, make a further public statement on this matter. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Sonia. All right, we doing it. We doing it. Okay, we ready. So we opening a PR firm together. We're gonna have the Silver Lining PR firm. Okay. So a couple of thoughts. I'm gonna walk through, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give a couple of just general bits of feedback, and then I'm gonna walk you all through. Here are some things that I'm seeing in a situation like this. Okay, so number one, Linda, I'm gonna come back to you for a second. One of the terms you used right at the beginning of your presentation, like I want to talk about a misnomer or a misunderstanding or something along those lines. What I would say in this kind of situation, don't commit yourself to that, right? Because you actually at this point don't know. We don't like it. It could be an infection in your food. So I mean, like, we don't know now. Like, so you don't want to say, you don't want to come out in some ways. You're not doing this in terms of your tone, but you don't want to come out and immediately give them information to say, they're claiming that we're lying and we're all sick. Because if someone's sick and you're telling them, oh, there's nothing, like, that's going to make you seem heartless as a company. So you don't want to commit yourself to that. Now, if I'm going to come back to Abigail or to Sonia, I think one of the things that I would encourage you all to think about is you're going to say that we're still working with local health officials to do source tracing. We recognize some people have talked about being ill, but don't accept that this is from your food. It just could be, you could just be collateral damage. They could have just happened to all come to your spot. It could be something else. It could be another thing. So we don't know. So one of the things that all of you said that I would commend you for is like, we're still gathering information, you know? So if we're going to think about this kind of scenario, what we need to think about, what are the 3 points that we want to make? If I'm looking at this from a health food situation, I want to make the point that, hey, we have a sterling safety record. We are committed to our customers, and we are working with local health officials to ensure that both our customers and our practices are both in the best interest of public health. That's the message I want to give. But we're still gathering information about what exactly happened or didn't happen. We don't know. So don't commit yourself to they're at fault, we're at fault. You don't know yet. But let's go back and I'll walk you through a couple of key points that I'm going to make. And we're going to go through these key points, and after we go through this, I'm going to open it up for any questions you might have. We have about 15 minutes left in our time today. Okay, so can everyone see the screen? You should see scenario 1, product quality issue suggested. Okay, number 1. There we go. Okay, acknowledge the complaints and express genuine concern for the customers. And this will be a place where you can humanize it. I was sitting at home with my family when I first received notice that some of our customers were complaining. And, you know, I want to acknowledge both these concerns raised by our customers, and I want to explain that we are concerned for the health and well-being of our customers, as we have been throughout our 20-year history. This has been a staple of our model. So acknowledge the complaints, like you're acknowledging this is an issue. Now, you're not acknowledging blame yet. You're not acknowledging fault. You're saying, we acknowledge this is an issue. You want to share your safety protocols and your testing procedures. We undergo rigorous safety protocols and testing procedures at Waffles. And so that includes, you know, A, B, and C. And if this is true, this even goes beyond what's required of us by public health officials. So it's not just we're doing what the government asks us to do, but we're trying to go above and beyond what's expected because your safety matters to us. And we wear your safety as a badge of honor. Okay? Outline specific steps being taken to investigate and address the issue. We have contacted local public health officials who are working with us to identify and to investigate any issues that are emerging from this. And we have been fully we've fully opened up our spaces, blah, 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 to public health officials. So just like, what steps are you taking? Furthermore, we are going to, you wouldn't necessarily do this, but close our kitchen for 2 days and undergo, like, is there a thorough cleaning that you can go through? I mean, so what steps are you taking? I would say public health officials, cleaning, and just enhanced testing are going to be some things that I would do if I was in this position. So what can you do to enhance public safety? Or to enhance public confidence in you as a safe place to get their food? Number 4, you emphasize your values, connect your response to your commitment to quality and customer safety. You want to frame this response as something that's already belonging to the ways in which you operate in the community. This has always been a staple of our business model, and how we respond to this current set of circumstances is going to be consistent with our past for caring for our consumers and seeking to provide them with the best possible service in the industry. And then, sorry, let me go back to that. Share how your team is personally responding to this situation. And so what are you all specifically doing? Maybe it's listening, maybe it's social media engagement, maybe it's cleaning, maybe it's enhanced testing. So what kind of things are you all doing? Okay, some key messages that you might have. Customer safety is our absolute priority, which is why we took immediate action when we heard these concerns. And emphasize that adjective immediate matters there. We were not being lackadaisical. We were trying to be swift in our response. We've initiated a voluntary review of the specific batch mentioned in the complaint. So if you're talking about these waffles, the particular mixtures, you know what I'm saying, and we're cooperating fully with health officials. This gets back to something that you were saying in your response there, Abigail, but like cooperating fully with health officials. And third, in our 15 years, we've maintained rigorous control standards that have exceeded industry requirements, and we're committed to maintaining that trust. And so these would be an example of 3 of the core elements of this message that you might want to get across. And so the key thing is, how do you spin this into strength? That's what we're talking about here. How do you flip the story? So we're going to be talking about this over the next couple of SLAP sessions that I have the chance to join you all with. So, I mean, this is not a one-time thing, but for now, we've talked about 5 steps. We've talked about some practical points of preparation, and we went through a scenario. In our time left, what questions do you have? And I see, the dates of the continued conversation are in the chat box. I appreciate that. What questions?
If no one has anything, I would like to ask. The first point, take ownership, I think is the one that baffles me the most. And yes, I'm here to learn too, guys. It baffles me a little bit because take ownership in what? Am I taking ownership of the situation that is happening now, or taking ownership of we did something wrong, acknowledging that it was, could you explain that a bit more?
Yeah. So I would say take ownership is different than take responsibility. And so if we think of taking responsibility as like, we're at fault, on us, my bad, that's not what I'm saying here. Taking ownership is inserting ourselves to be almost like the primary voice in this conversation, or the voice, I want you hearing from me. So I want to think of it almost like I'm going to take control of this situation, and I'm going to take control of the narrative surrounding this situation. Because what's going to happen is if we allow social media to adjudicate the situation, it can quickly get out of hand to the point that we don't have any voice in our own public narrative. And so when I say take controls, I'm inserting my voice in this. I'm providing answers that, sure, you can go listen to what people are saying on TikTok or Twitter or whatever, but here's what we're actually doing. Here's the conversation. Here's the steps we're taking. Here's how we're working with public health officials. And this is especially important in this moment of misinformation and fake news. People, in so many ways, have lost discernment where what is actually a good news source, what is actually factual. So this is where it's important for us in a situation like this to step in and take ownership of the situation. You're not just going to talk around us. You got to talk to us.
Thank you, Theon.
Of course.
Is there anyone else that has a question for Theon?
I have a question actually.
Yeah,
Um,
Linda.
so I'm in education, and so a scenario that I'm thinking about is say one of my employees was it's either I'm trying to think of something that could happen. Like a student said that it was a male employee, right? Who's working with teachers or whatever, and a female student says that he touched her inappropriately or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
You know, so I'm thinking,
Yes. Go ahead.
no, no, thinking how should I react to that? Because immediately it's like, well, I wouldn't hire anybody like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'll get defensive.
Right.
You know, so it's like,
Yeah, you can't get defensive in that situation.
right,
What you have to
right,
do, because I mean, if you say I wouldn't hire anyone like that, and then it comes out proven, well, what does that say about you? You know what I'm saying? There's any number of things.
right.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about Drake and Kendrick Lamar right now, but I could talk about Drake and Kendrick Lamar right now. But I mean, but if I'm responding to a situation like this, like you just described, the first thing that you need to do is talk about what steps have you taken? Like my first concern, if I'm a parent, I'm hearing this, what steps are you doing to ensure that my child is safe? So what steps are you doing to ensure child safety? What kind of vetting do you undergo? How are you working with local officials? Because if you're talking about allegations of harassment, assault, this is a criminal matter now. We are working with local officials. We've placed this individual on administrative leave. You know, those are all the key themes that I'm saying. And this is going to undergo a rigorous investigation in partnership with local public safety officials. Like your goal is to reinstill public trust. Like that's public confidence. And this is where it's really important. Like this is not your time to defend. I hired this person, you know, they would never do this. That's not going to help you in that moment. And in fact, that would probably hurt.
Yeah, probably so, because I would think that too. But that's in my head. That's the first what I would say. You know.
Oh, I'm not saying that you're wrong I think, you know, we have various things, you know, innocent to proven guilty. I'm the child. My father was a criminal defense attorney in Chicago for 35 years. So I'm not trying to incriminate someone before they're found guilty, but I am saying, especially if you're in that scenario, how long in society have women's voices gone unheard in the face of assault, abuse, and harassment? And so to immediately respond with a defensive is going to play into an echo chamber of silence surrounding forms of assault. And so that there's not, you have to instill confidence you're taking these allegations seriously.
Okay. All right. That's a good. They're good steps too.
We try.
One question to link things to things that you have said before. Do you recall when we talk about image repair? Image repair comes after, during, or after, during, or meanwhile this happens. When did you say that?
Yeah. So several sessions ago, we talked about image repair. Oh, wow, we got the link already there when we talked about it. Lovely. So we talked about image repair strategies. There's the easiest answer, which is not at all a satisfying answer, is it depends. Probably the better answer would be image repair is happening as you're going through this process of responding to the issue and trying to flip the story. Because if you're thinking about like your commitment to 15 years of good health outcomes, that's image repair work. That's bolstering. You know, that's bolstering your reputation. We've had a reputation for safety. So image repair is going to go hand in hand with this. Now, probably what's going to change is what image repair strategy are you going to implement? So let's take Linda's scenario. Let's say the scenario plays out and that you know, person that Linda hired, you know, with rigorous tests, we found they did do something wrong here. Well, then it's not just a matter of bolstering our safety. It's going to be a matter of how do we repair our image after this failure of public trust. That's going to require a different image repair strategy. And so image repair is going to coexist with your attempt to frame the narrative in a dynamic fashion. with the particular image repair strategy that you're invoking changing depending on how the news unfolds. If we go back to our restaurant, Waffles, what strategy we're going to use is, hey, there was no problem here with our food, but we're going to continue to try to maintain this commitment to public safety and public health that we have for our entire existence. Or it was a problem with our food. We're sorry. Here's how we're going to do better in the future.
Thank you, Theon.
Hi. So I have
Hi,
one
Candace.
question. Hey, so I have one question. I'm not sure if it's going to make sense, but when you first said about write something that is going to be out there to help with persons asking questions, first thing I thought of is, as you said, Kendrick and Kendrick and Drake beef. I was thinking about Jay-Z. So in that case, I was wondering, where do you put it? Do you write something up and put it out? Do you face the media and say it? Do you put it where it's being placed as social news, or do you put your face out there? Do you get a person to put a face there, or do you just send a note and just send it out there? So that's my
So
question.
I love that question. So I think it all depends on the situation. Because here's why Jay-Z, I can tell you why Jay-Z did not take questions. There are countless images of Jay-Z together with Diddy. Like they've been together so much. They were literally at Barack Obama's 2008 inauguration sitting next to each other. Like they're well known that they have a relationship. If Jay-Z gives us media footage of him actually talking about this issue, what's going to happen? While CNN is kind of showing his press conference, they're also going to have pictures cycling through of him and Diddy. And the very image of them together is going to undermine the defense he's trying to leverage or wage there. So for him, in this situation, the best option, and I will say in terms of an image repair, flipping the script, it was one of the, my conversation right now is not assessing guilt or innocence here. That's not what I'm doing right here. I'm just talking about from an image repair. Like his legal team and PR team, they actually handled that really well. Like they could not have handled that more effectively. Putting a statement out there that still reflected his vernacular, his style of speech, so it felt like it was coming from him. And I mean, even the aggressiveness of it, if you notice in one of the early statements, it's like, I am committed to making sure that people are always heard, but these allegations, and if you notice, he never attacks the alleged victim, he attacks the attorney. That's who he attacks, like, because that's the person you can attack. And so that person does not have any sympathy in the public sphere. He never attacks, and that's a very strategic choice. And so I think how he did a statement that can't be as easily juxtaposed with pictures of him with Diddy, it was a deft move. Like it was a really good move. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Theon, and thank you, Candice, for the question. I think we should wrap up there, Theon, to be very respectful with everybody's time.
Colombo, could I?
Enjoyed very much. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to encourage everyone in the room. If you enjoyed this session today, Theon has 3 other sessions in Slap Center right now on April 29, on August 26th, and October 28th. Why is there a gap between April and August? We can ask Theon, but go RSVP for the ones that are there so that we can continue this conversation. If you need help with that, please let us know. That's it. Thank you.
For the chance to be with you all today.
Yes, thank you, Theon, by the way. Very, very great. So I will share with you after this meet. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Theon. I will see you in April then, right?